Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Tal Eyre. Tal Eyre, author of the book Dad Mode 25 Ways to Connect with Your Children. In December 2011, Anita and Tal welcomed their daughter, Anina. Did I pronounce that correctly?
That's right. That's correct.
Into their family, and Dad Mode was officially activated. Tell went on to earn a Master of Applied Positive Psychology, which completely fascinates me. And at the end of this, I'd like to ask you questions about this degree at the University of Pennsylvania, and then applied his learnings with his family and as a Swiss-based leader in global business development. Through it all, Tal's highest priority has remained his family, and Dad Mode reveals some of his key learnings along the way. Tal and his family live in the Swiss Alps. Oh man, I can't wait to visit the Swiss Alps. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lino. It's wonderful to be on here. I'm honored.
Tell us about, yeah, welcome. Hey, what's going on in the Swiss Alps besides beauty and fresh air and Swiss cheese?
Oh man, I gotta tell you, it's like you got to pinch yourself every once in a while because you're up in these Alps and you hear the cowbells kind of bouncing off of the cliffs around you, and then you see the little goats running around. You think you're gonna see Heidi with Peter around on the mountains. And we're really actually from that area where the book Heidi was kind of inspired. So or written about. So we're really lucky to be here. We love it in Switzerland. Yes, there's a lot of good cheese as well. Yes.
Well, that feels beautiful. I mean, you just telling me that, I feel like I just pictured it all and all of a sudden was just there at that moment. It just
Yes.
feels really incredible and beautiful. Fresh air. I mean, wow, no pollution. I can imagine. Someday
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
go take a train
You
ride. A lot of
should. You're
trains there.
welcome. You're welcome. We will welcome you to Switzerland if you come. Come on
Jeez,
over.
thanks, Tal. Holy moly, I love it. Swiss Alps, I'm coming to town soon. So, hey, Tal, this is really fascinating. I'm really glad that I have you here to talk about dad mode because so many dads are all around us, and I feel like I grew up with my dad not knowing what in the world to do. So he did what he knew best, which is how he was taught, and his father wasn't around. His father was kind of fooling around with other women. So it's like,
Mm,
how does someone that doesn't have a good father example become a good father? And how
mm,
does someone become a father in general if they've never been a father before? And so in
mm.
you writing these steps, dad mode, I mean, it's definitely going to open up the pages and the heart of a lot of people and people that are even welcoming becoming a father for the first time. So thank you so much for the hard work and the energy that you put into this book.
You're
So
welcome.
tell us your journey. How did fatherhood begin?
Yes, yes. Well, I really just listened to some of your podcasts and I loved it. And one of the things that I like about it is talking about things that are difficult and things that, that are tough. And for me, Dr. Lino, my journey didn't start out super easy. We actually, my wife and I got married later, Anita and I, and we actually we she was 36 by the time we were married, and then we she got pregnant at about 38, and but we struggled with infertility after that. We would have actually loved to have more children, but we really and we learned a lot from that because after a few years and lots of attempts of various ways to have more children, we couldn't. And it gave us so much empathy for people who have gone through that. And there's a lot of people out there that have struggled with infertility.
Oh
And
yeah.
it gives us that empathy to be able to talk with them and understand the pain that they go through in that. So I wanted to just start by saying that we're really lucky and happy that we were able to have a Nina, but we weren't able to have any other kids. And so that taught us a lot. So that's kind of how it started. And we really just value every moment with we try to value every moment with our daughter because we know it's a blessing to have her.
Definitely a blessing to have her, and it's a blessing to have you to be sharing your truth. Thank you so much, Tal. I appreciate it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then what happened? I mean, so was Nina a surprise then since there were complications with
Well,
fertility or
we were actually okay. It wasn't too much of a challenge to have her. It was just after her. But I wanted to
okay.
mention that just because, but it started this amazing feeling. My wife Anita, she was actually concerned about becoming a mother as well, because she wasn't that close to children in her life. She was the youngest of three, and she didn't have very many kids around her. So she was wondering how she was going to be able to do this
Yeah.
thing called being a mom.
Right.
And when she had our daughter, within 24 hours, she was a completely changed person.
Oh yeah.
She had this amazing experience with oxytocin where she just was gaga over our daughter
Yeah.
after that, and she forgot about all of her worries. And we were really grateful for that as well. It doesn't happen with all women, and there's actually we have a lot of empathy for that as well with postpartum depression in male and females.
Oh yeah.
But we were really happy to have this happen for us, and we feel really connected to our daughter. So dad mode really started then for me.
So
I was
dad
just
mode was instant for you.
Yeah, it was right then. And I read somewhere that it's really important to hold the baby really close to skin contact within a few hours of birth. And I did that. And I think that might have helped a little bit as well, because there's a lot of good research out there saying the more physical or tactile contact you have skin to skin with your child as early as possible releases this beautiful bonding hormone called oxytocin. And I didn't know about this at the time, but I knew that something was good about holding her close. And I was in charge of bathing her as well. And
Yeah.
so I was able to really have, I was changing diapers, I was helping her stay clean, and that also helped us to sort of be close, which was nice.
So you knew that something good called oxytocin, which is a chemical hormone that's released, a good feeling bonding hormone, is released when you hold your child close skin to skin. You knew this, but did you feel it right away?
I did. I did. I felt it, and I have a video, Dr. Lino. It was so
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
From day one back home at our home, our apartment in New York City, and I was just gaga over this girl. I was just you can hear it in my voice. I'm just I think I'm a kind of a tough guy and all that. You get soft when you're a new father, and it was just I can see it now. I can feel it when I watch that video. I know that I was really into this whole connection with my daughter at that point.
Could you describe the softness? You said that you get soft. What does that feel like? What is a soft feeling?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things parents can do is look at their child with soft eyes. I had a friend tell me about this, and soft eyes to me means you portray through your eyes how you're actually feeling about them, the love that you have for them, that unconditional love that you're trying to show to them. And I know that that's a big topic for you, this unconditional love. And
It
I
is.
think that it's such a hard thing to do all the time, but if we're always working on it, it's so powerful for our children.
And so when you look at your child with soft eyes, also known or felt as unconditional love, in these soft eyes and this unconditional love feeling that you give your child, is it reciprocated at the moment when you give it?
Oh, good question. Yeah, but there's a lot of research out there. It's funny because social science research, and I'm talking to Dr. Lino, you know all about this.
Wow.
But there was some research around mirror neurons from a few years ago, and the funny thing about social science research, as you know, is sometimes it doesn't get replicated very well, and so
Right.
now people are saying they're really mirror neurons aren't really a thing. It's kind of but there's the concept is still there. So basically what I mean by that is kids do learn how to mirror us. They see what they see in us, and then they eventually mirror it back, or they do the thing back. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing. So if they're encountering love in through the eyes of their parents, that's got to be a beautiful thing for
Oh,
them, and
yeah.
they can somehow feel that, and then they eventually can reciprocate that love. That's what I think.
I think that's reasonable and I feel that to be true. Thank you for thanks for sharing that. So
Yes,
what was
yes,
next in the journey? So here is new baby Anina. You're looking at her through the eyes of softness, unconditional love.
yeah.
She starts to grow. And at what point do you feel it's time for me to write a book? When did this idea begin? When was the brewing? Where was the brewing process?
Ah, right. Well, you should know that I grew up in a family of nine. I'm the sixth of
What?
nine children, Dr.
Holy
Lena.
moly.
Yes, sixth of
You're the
nine, and
sixth of nine children.
yes, yes.
Holy moly.
And not only that, my parents are authors of parenting books,
Oh,
many parenting books. So I've grown up in the culture of parents. In fact, they would take me on their book tours as we were growing up. They've written over 50 books. Not
wow.
all not all are parenting books, but most of them are. So things like teaching your children values became number one on the New York Times bestseller list,
That's amazing.
which is a really big deal back in the 90s. And the reason it went to number one was because Oprah Winfrey, she saw the book and she actually invited our entire family to come on to her show. And so I remember being
Wait, so
14.
you were on the Oprah show?
Yes, 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 yes.
How old were you?
I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
There's still a clip or two on it on YouTube, but I got to say my little intro. I'm Tal. I'm 14 years old and I play basketball.
That's so darling. I love it.
And the rest of the family said hello, and they really highlighted this book, Teaching Your Children Values, and it just went straight to number one on the New York Times bestseller list
Great.
after that. They couldn't keep it on the shelves. And ever since then, I've seen the power of the importance of strengthening families, and I've wanted to do it as well. So to answer your question, I needed to write a book because I want to carry on this work that my parents have done such a good job with. And they've been tirelessly doing this for 40 years now. And now it's time for me
Carry the
to
torch.
yes, yes. So, so that's the reason for the book. And I knew I was going to write it before our daughter was born, but I didn't know it was going to be just for dads. I thought it was going to be for families. But the more I realized how different it is being a dad than a mom, I realized maybe dads need their own guide to connection. And so that's the direction I went with it.
I I love this. I mean, you're carrying the torch. Maybe this is what dads need because I'm certain there's more books about being a mother or first time mother than being a father, first time father. I can imagine that.
Yes, there's not too many books out there, and that's what I like about it. Is it's a new kind of area, and I know there's a lot of dads that are really interested in how to be, connected to their kids and be the best dad they can be, and that's what I had in mind when I wrote it. So, hopefully, it will help dads. Yep.
So before we discuss the some of the chapters or ways in your book or talk a little bit about your book, something you just said right now, be the best dad that you can be. Before becoming a father, did you want to be a father?
Yes, I did. Yes, I.
And and did you have any ideas back then on the type of father that you would be or that you wanted to be or wanted to become?
Uh, I have really great family experience. My parents were fellow strugglers. That's what they always say when they're in front of groups. But they were trying. I think that's the biggest message they sent me was that they were trying, and their trying was good enough. And it was, and we still feel all nine of us very well connected now, even in our adult years. And so, to answer your question, yes, I wanted to be a dad, and I wanted to try to do it a little bit like my dad with my own twist on it, of course.
And how did your dad do it?
Well, my dad was, I guess that in psychology, I love the term children need to feel felt. And the idea
I
there is
love that, and I have to write it down. Children need to feel felt.
feel felt. And so my dad wasn't in dad mode all the time. And I'm not telling dads they have to be always, doing everything. In fact, they have a lot of other important things they need to do in their lives. And
Yeah, yeah.
but I was really impressed by how I could always feel that my dad was aware of me just through little things. You know, when I'd walk in the door, he knew I walked in and he would say hi to me. Or when I was trying to play basketball or do certain things, he was there at those games and he knew what I was going through. And I just felt like I had this person with me, even though he wasn't with me, but with me emotionally. And that's that connection. That's the main part of this whole idea of connection is you don't have to be the everything dad and do everything right. He made tons of mistakes. He he he's well known in our family for bringing kids to movies when they're actually that's not even appropriate for kids, for example. But he was there for us emotionally, and that was really big.
And you would say this, that your siblings would say the same, correct?
Definitely, yeah. It was amazing because it's 9 kids, right? But
Yeah.
just a little letter here or there, or a Sunday afternoon talk just to see how we were doing. And all these things they had written about in their books, Dr. Lino. So they were actually practicing what they were writing. And
Excellent.
again, not perfect, and a lot of failures, but
Sure.
the overall was a good connection. So I think in the long run, it was worth it.
As you're saying this, I just can imagine the challenge of 9 different personalities and 9 different pairs of eyes
Yeah.
and 9 different sentiments, 9 different hearts, 9 different healths, 9 different bodies. And your father was able to juggle all that by making by the simple ways of connection, just acknowledging that your child is there, bringing into their awareness that you are aware of them can sometimes be enough, because when parents ignore their children, that's where trauma starts. And
Hmm.
if you're there and you're present in any way, even if it's the smallest way, just acknowledging them and saying hello, that's welcoming their presence, welcoming their energy, and sending love even from afar. Even if you're not touching them or hugging them or embracing them, it's still love.
Well
And
said.
so, yeah,
Mhm.
that's really beautiful that your father and your mother were able to juggle 9, and let alone your father with a bunch of other tasks, and still going to your games and watching you from a distance. I mean, that's really inspiring and motivating.
Thank you, thank you. And I know everybody's situation is different, and I feel a responsibility to talk about this because wherever anybody is, you're a good example of this, Dr. Lino. You're making the most out of your life. You've had some pretty amazing struggles along the way, but anybody can figure these things out if they really focus in on that aspect and doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh yeah, because all struggles are accomplishments.
Yes, yes, great.
So let's talk about dad mode, 25 ways to connect with your children. So you knew in your life, even before becoming a father, that you were going to write a book, and especially coming from a devout family and written more over 50 books, being on Oprah, the seeds were planted for you. I feel like the soil was ripe for you to continue to rise to the top and to your family name, and carry that torch. And here you are with your book. When did the book start to come into fruition?
You know, when I studied positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, I was so impressed by the world-class people there. And everything that they taught was about well-being and about how to have meaning in your life and how to have a purpose. And so much of that overlapped with being a parent. So what I did is I wrote my capstone um, paper on this thing called flourishing families, and that was the first. There's still parts of the book in dad mode, or parts of the paper in dad mode, but that was kind of the first real document that I put together, and then it evolved from there over the years, and it's a 10-year project. I mean, I graduated 10 years ago, and so finally got it done. So I want to tell all those dads and guys out there, especially if you want to write something or if you want to do something, don't give up. You know, it took me 10 years, but I'm really, really happy to say that I finally got it done. So,
Oh yeah, as long as you get it done. I mean, definitely. And sometimes, I mean, it takes that amount of time to get that seasoned with your experiences and with your thoughts, with your behaviors, matching your thoughts and putting it into language and just making sure that it's fluid and understood by yourself so that when it's understood fully by you, it's understood fully by others.
well said, well said. And that was difficult because the clarity is only there now, but it wasn't very clear in the first drafts. And you probably know about that as you wrote your book.
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's never
Uh,
clear in the first draft, but that's the beauty of it. It's the clarity unfolds.
yes, it unfolds, and thank heavens for good editors.
Yeah, oh, I'll say that's for sure. Thank goodness for that. And so in this process, this 10-year process and getting your degree in positive psychology, learning about having a meaning in life, a purpose, it helped you dive deep into this book that you created called Dad Mode 25 Ways to Connect with Your Children. And so I was looking at your book and I just love how instead of chapters, very creative, by the way. Did you come up with this creative process when you were writing it, or did someone else help you?
Well, I can't take credit for all of it, no, but I love my sister. I said, I'm gonna do 31 days. It's gonna be a month of kind of ways to connect. And she's like, why don't you just call it ways instead of days? And I'm like, it's a great idea. So thank you, Saren, for that.
Yeah, thanks,
Um,
sister.
but yeah, and it just sort of evolved as it went. So that was one example. But yeah, it was going to be 31, it went down to 25, but they're the things I'm most passionate about when it comes to parenting.
So I love that. So for those that haven't checked out the book yet, the book is divided into ways instead of chapters. So there's like way one, way two, way one, jumpstart your connection, way two, self connection, so on and so forth. And the chapters of this book are really incredible. And I wish we had enough time to go through every single chapter. Obviously, we don't, but I would like to cover some of these chapters and what led you to create some of these, maybe some of the main points in some of the
Right.
chapters. And I'd like to start with way two, self connection.
Okay.
What do we mean by self connection in way two?
Yes. So what I've been thinking about a lot is basically you can't connect with people on a deep level unless you have a deep connection yourself. And
Yeah.
it's actually a quote from Brene Brown, which is one of my favorite people. I'm sure you're familiar with her,
Yes.
but she um she basically says like, yeah, her direct quote is, "Our connection with others can only be as deep as our connection with ourselves."
Yes.
We're in this amazing renaissance. We're in this amazing time right now where we're understanding how the brain works. You and I are both psychology nerds, you know, we
Yeah.
love
I love it.
I'm sorry to call you a nerd. I'm
Not at
I'm
all.
a
I
nerd
am, and
right
I love it.
here. But basically, we really we need to figure out how to make connections in our own life to be able to really understand and guide our children. So the very first step really is after this jump start, which is the oxytocin piece we talked about earlier, is really to make connections with our own story. And I like to think about it that way. We're all making sense of our own stories in life, and dads and men definitely have a little bit of a hard time sometimes with that because we're sort of supposed to be stoic or, not really show emotions as much. But in fact, I think that that's changing as well. And men are becoming more aware of who they are, what drives them, what happened in the past, how do they make sense of that, and how do they want to create the future for themselves and for their children and their family. So yeah,
I love
that's
this.
that's the
Yeah.
idea of this self-connection piece.
And I do feel that. I do feel that men are now starting to evolve to become more emotional, or not be afraid of their emotions, and not being afraid to cry, and just not
Yeah.
really genderizing a certain feeling, and just going with the feeling without any it being geared towards a woman's emotion, and just calling it an emotion.
Hmm.
And so I'm really I have been seeing this and feeling it, and feeling the sensitivity that a lot of men are developing, which is beautiful. We need this. The planet needs it. And
Yes.
so in self connection, if somebody becomes a father for the first time, and it's important to connect with yourself deeply in order to connect with your new child deeply, how does someone begin, or how does a man begin to connect with himself deeply if he hasn't connected with himself that way before?
That's such a great question. I think that one of my favorite things lately is this thing called shadow work. And what shadow work is to me is looking at your blind spots and really actually asking people around you, the people that are closest to you are great resources, and it's touchy, it's difficult, but
Oh yeah.
you need to actually seek out the ability to see yourself from all angles and see how you may be coming across to people in ways that you weren't even aware of. And that will guide you down a road. It's a very difficult road, but it's a road that will heal you in a lot of ways. It's a beautiful road. I'm on it right now. I don't have it all figured out, but I think it's a beautiful road to go down because it helps you see those shadow sides and helps you make that connection. So I would highly recommend looking at that. Some of my favorite, Carl Jung is
Oh yeah.
actually from the Zurich area. I went to his
Oh well.
house a year ago,
What? That's
and
amazing.
yeah, he's such an amazing guy. And he talks about making sense of the second half of life. And it's different in the first half and the second half, but the second half of life has a lot more to do with looking at yourself and the shadow side and these kind of things.
And so the shadow side could also be seen as self-discovery.
Yes, yes. It's in the process of self-discovery for sure. Yeah.
Self-discovery, and we can also call it a rediscovery.
Yes, yes. Well
And so
said.
in a man finally rediscovering his true nature, and discovering himself, and having the intention to go deep, to become a more aware and connected father, it's important and it's a good step, and it's a healthy step to ask people, hey, so help me see my blind spots. How can I be a better person? Or what can I tweak about myself where I can feel more connected? Are there ever times where you think I'm not listening? What can I do to be a better listener? Maybe just asking more questions.
Yes, yes. And it's really opening up to those closest to you and not shutting it out,
Don't
which
put a
is
wall
what,
up. Hang on, I
yes.
don't want to hear this right now. That's not true. Don't get
And
defensive. Hey, I don't talk like that.
I say this with a smile because it is very difficult. And, the sign of really healthy, actually healthy individuals are those who can and that have the bandwidth to be able to do this. But I got to tell you, I don't do it all the time. I sometimes don't want to look. It's difficult, and so I'm not gonna go ahead and say, oh, you need to do this. I've got it all figured out. Because just recently, Dr. Lino, I mean, I I have a lot of shadow work I have to do when it comes to how I interact with my partner, with Anita. She gives me feedback, and I choose to not listen to it sometimes. And me being open to try to say, you know what, that is something. It hurts to think about it, but it's something is really an important step. So it's not fun, but it's really important.
Well, usually those that love you, or that are around you that love you, that you have a strong connection with, are the ones that are going to tell you what you could do about yourself, for yourself, to make you a better person, and to be the best that you can be for you and for others. And
Right.
as much as we don't want to hear it, sometimes it's that that nagging, I don't want to hear it, but I kind of do at the same time, it's
Mhm.
because you know that that's what's going to actually uplift you and help pave a way to a newer, better version of yourself. So, guys, as painful as it is, if someone tells you you're being a shithead, lay it down your walls and listen and say, "Am I really? Well, how? Tell me about it. What is a shithead? I mean, what? How am I acting? Well, how am I being? Did I had a tone like? No, I did. Oh, I'm doing it right now. Okay, hold on. Let me take a deep breath. I can step back and sit down and take a deep breath. I can see it, I can feel it, and really recognize it and become aware of your actions and your behaviors. And that actually gives you more of an inner peace and a sense of knowing who you are and a responsibility to take care of yourself and others in that case. And it turns out to unfold quite beautifully when you take charge of your life that way. Thank you for that chapter.
Yes, well said.
And so let's go to way 6, secure attachment and unconditional love.
Okay, let's do that.
What is
Basically,
secure attachment for those listening for the first time? I can imagine a lot of people are like, "Huh? What does that mean? What is a secure attachment?"
well, when I think of a secure attachment, I think of when a child feels secure around their parents. It's a beautiful thing because think about like a parent, could be a mother or father or both, and think about a child walking around or just crawling around in front of them. People say that a child who has a secure attachment, who has felt that love, who has felt those warm eyes, the things we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, they're actually going to feel confident enough to go explore a little bit further around the room, or they're going to feel secure enough to try things, to try even if they fail, but like to try something new. And this is a generality, but I really like that idea because to me, that's my goal with secure attachment is to show confidence in my daughter and say, you know what? Oh, I'm not going to prepare the way for you, but I'm going to help prepare you for the way. And when I do that, you're going to encounter stuff that I don't know what it's going to be, but I
Sure.
know you'll be able to handle it. And when a child feels that security, they feel that love from their parents, they go out and try new things. They go out and do amazing things beyond what your parents would even consider. And what we want is our children to raise the water line. We want them to be way better than us. And that's a great way to do it.
I love this tell. So in creating secure attachment, it also allows your child to feel confident and responsible for themselves, and it helps them create. Because if there's no secure attachment, the creativity is halted and it's stalled.
Yes, yes.
And so that's the only way creativity can flourish. And that's the way we all learn is through creativity. Because creativity
Hmm.
is creation in motion. And you can't create if you're being insecurely attached to something or someone. And so
Right.
you're creating a space with secure attachment and allowing them to blossom and bloom while you observe it happen. But if you need a little path shown, I can guide you to this path. However, I trust that you're going to choose the best path for you. Because either way, you
Yes.
can't go wrong. It's still going to be your path.
Well said. Well said. And that has to do with that safe harbor piece, which is in the home, we want to be creating an atmosphere where our children can feel that, but also where they can sometimes actually feel their emotions and let out some of their emotions. And one of the cool things about this book that I learned is we can teach an emotional literacy to our kids where we basically if we see them in this secure place where they're acting up and yelling, and this may or may not have happened in the last 24 hours in our home, and we stay calm and we help name what they might be feeling. We may be right, we may be wrong, but we help them get a vocabulary for how to express what they were feeling. That's a powerful piece as well. And that has to do with secure attachment and safe harbor as well.
Studying psychology yourself, I'm sure you've come across the emotional wheel.
Uh-huh.
Great.
Not
So,
not a
and
lot, but tell me about it.
so yeah, because the emotional wheel helps people describe emotions that are not able, that don't have the emotional literacy as you
Great.
described right now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so not just children, but people in general. I mean, a lot of people they're feeling a certain way and they don't have the word to what they're feeling. And so the emotional wheel kind of allows them to look at these
Hmm.
different types of emotions and be able to identify with that. And once you're able to identify, you're actually able to feel it and then let it go. And then that's how you grow within it and not keep it trapped within yourself.
Oh,
So
that's great.
it is
Yeah.
great, the emotional wheel. So I love what you said, emotional literacy, and you help them come up with that. But it's I love the collaboration of the parents or even just father mode himself
Yeah.
collaborating with your child and finding this out rather than pulling out a wheel or whatever. Let's talk about this because that keeps the connection, and that helps
Mhm.
the both of you kind of just navigate the feeling that you're even going through with your child while they're going through this feeling, and the both of you get to grow in that connection and develop into the individuals that you still are, keeping your separate but equal, and at the same time, really just blossoming together in your connection.
Well said. Yes.
Great. I love this. And so, and in that is unconditional love
Yes. Yes.
because there's trust and there's trust in unconditional love.
Yes. Yes. I know you've thought a lot about unconditional love. So I think that yeah, that I can't say it better myself.
You sure can. You said it great on way 6 and Dad More 25 ways to connect with your children. Everybody check it out. I love it so far. So let's go with way 8. I'm really fascinated by this. When dad loses his cool,
Oh, okay.
I'm
Good,
sure
good.
that would be easy because I lose my cool with my cats. So, I mean, I can't even imagine I if I had, a grip of 5 kids around me, I don't know how I would be. I wouldn't know what to do if I lost my cool. So how do you lose what happens, Dad, when you lose your cool?
Well, you know, I talk about men here because I'm a man and I have this building anger that comes up in me when something, usually when I'm tired or hungry,
Sure.
but also just in general. And and what happens, I tell a story in the book about we arrived at a beach with our daughter, and she was just not having it. None of us had had any food. We were all miserable. It was windy, and we were trying to get her out of the car. She wouldn't put her shoes on, and I just lost it. And I got right close to her, um, face to face, and I was obviously yelling at her. And I still remember seeing her kind of cringing a little bit. And that it really hurts me to say that because
I
that's
bet.
such bad parenting. But I I could just tell that I'd gone way off. I've, just lost my cool. And I just walked away and went to the other side of the parking lot and wasn't very proud of my actions. Um, and I feel like um, that was really damaging to our connection because I'm a big, scary person. I'm 6'8".
Whoa.
I'm a former basketball player, and to have be this like 4 or 5 year old, you're it's intimidating,
Sure.
especially for dads.
Oh, yeah.
So dads should keep that in mind, and also just remember that even if the child is putting up like a tough face or they think they're fine, it is not a healthy thing to be yelling at kids. Um, and so it took a while to repair that rupture. And the most important thing that I try and do is eliminate those times as much as possible. And the way that I do that, Dr. Lino, is I found out through these beautiful research things from Dr. Gottman. If anybody wants to read about sort of relationship experts, the Gottmans are amazing. And
Sure.
they say that basically, um, you have about 20 minutes where you need to cool down before you actually say anything else. So what we do is we have this volcano dad image in the book, and it's what you talk to your kid and say, this is how my life works. Sometimes I'm down here in the green zone, I'm fine. But then it starts gets kind of the yellow zone, and that's when I'm close to maybe erupting. And then if it goes into red, I'm gonna erupt, and I don't want to erupt. So I'm gonna use this language with you to tell you how I'm doing. So if I'm having a long day, if I had a hard day at work, I'm gonna say, look, Anina, I'm actually I'm at orange right now. I know it's not you. It's just I'm kind of fatigued, and I really need to I need you to work with me right now on this. And if you can't, I'm gonna need to take a break because I don't want to go into that eruption. And if I do erupt, then I need to just kind of exit and give myself at least 20 minutes to kind of calm down before I talk to her again. And that's been a really nice pattern for us because it helps her kind of give her a warning about this kind of thing, and then it eliminates the amount of times that I actually do erupt.
What if, just hypothetically,
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that. The visuals are incredible, and I can feel that it would definitely flow well with a lot of people, especially using colors and color coding. It kind of it definitely helps. And what if your child or a child wants attention right then and there? And even though you're giving them that boundary and you're letting them know
yeah,
this is where I'm at, I'm about to be at a red,
yeah.
but just dad, just hang on, just really quick. This isn't gonna take long. I just need you just real quick right now. I mean,
Right, right.
how do you what do you do in that minute where you don't the real quick
Yeah.
steps in your face at that moment? Let me just show you something.
Oh,
Uh,
well, it's a great question, and it happens all the time. And you can't, life is not like the book very often. So yeah, what I try and do is just find another level and maybe take a deep breath and remember what I'm going through and remember that I don't want to have that eruption. And it's really difficult. I mean, this whole parenting thing is like there should be tons more training around this whole topic for dads
yeah,
and
right?
moms because it's tough. But so that's what I would do is I bring myself to the very edge and then I try and go more without going into the red. But I don't have a necessary strategy to that. I just have that image in my head and I'm thinking the power of bad is 4 to 5 times as strong as the power of good. And
Yes.
when somebody gets yelled at, it takes 4 or 5 times of a good interaction to repair that connection. So that's what I keep in mind.
It's really interesting that it would take more time to repair the bad with good. But I have a
Yeah,
question about that. I'm just as you're saying that because and I'm remembering the story about the beach with your daughter and how it took a while for you to repair this, or repair that quarrel that happened, that
yeah,
change of energy, the
yeah,
switch of personality that she saw in you. But
yeah.
I'm wondering is what what took a while for that to repair? Was that your own personal feelings of guilt or sadness or personal anger towards yourself? Or was it felt did you feel that she didn't trust you at that for a while after that? Or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think probably more of the latter, because she did feel like she didn't um, that feeling of being scared of somebody is really hard to kind of get it out of your mind. And and so you know, again, I don't want to make dads feel bad. Every dad gets upset, they explode, they make mistakes. But what I'm trying to say is the work that we do to eliminate that is really important. So hopefully that answers your question a little
It
bit.
does,
But let's,
because it's in the process of the work that you're doing that's also going to be felt by your child. Because if you
yeah,
don't work on it, it's going to continue and if not get worse. And then you just
right,
become a person that people fear. Not just your kids, people will just fear your temperament.
yeah, yeah,
And you'll fear yourself.
yes, yes. And I'm just so aware of dads around, parents around the world that, my parents, they also taught me this. They said, look, when we talk about parenting, it's a very touchy topic because people feel a lot of guilt. People feel like, oh, well, we're not even close on some of that stuff. And I just want to remind you that, no family's got it figured out.
Right.
There was constant fighting in my home growing up, even though my parents were so-called parenting experts. But we learned how to work through it, and we learned how to repair it, and that constant effort did pay off in the long run. I didn't know if it ever would. There were
Yeah.
times when I was like, this is not functioning very well.
Sure.
But I just want to say that to help the parents listening to know that.
Thank you for bringing that into light. It is a struggle, and there's always light within the struggle. And as long as you keep working at it and you keep putting forth effort, you're going to see some positive change.
Yes. Yes.
Great, wonderful. So let's go into, let's see, there's so many great chapters. Let's go with Way 17, an ongoing conversation about sex.
All right.
How did that start with your child? How old was she when she started asking you questions about this? And did you already think about answers prior to her asking? Like one day Anina's going to start asking me, and this is what I'm going to say. Or were you just like, well, when it happens, we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out.
Yeah, right. It's funny that you ask. Your questions are really good. And I got to tell you, that was the other thing that I got asked on the Oprah show, national TV.
Oh, oh
We
my
come
gosh.
back, we come back from a break. I'm not kidding. We come back from a break, and Oprah, I hadn't said very much in the whole thing, and she turns to me and she goes, "Now we're going to talk about how to talk to your children about sex."
No.
Uh,
And now I'm asking you
Talmadge.
the same question.
She goes, Talmadge, what did you think when your parents told you about sex?
Wow, on national TV,
As a
my
as a
ears would have gotten so hot.
as a 14-year-old who was obviously starting to get very interested in sex,
Sure.
um, I said something like, "Well, I thought it was really interesting," and and luckily the studio audience busted out in laughter.
Oh, good.
And then my parents like took over from there because I don't know how do you answer that question
Yeah, how
on
do you answer
national
it? Especially
TV?
at 14? How do you answer that question?
So anyway,
Wow.
I have thought about that question ever since, and
I can
also
imagine.
just the importance of talking about sex. So for me, in full disclosure, my parents have written a book called How to Talk to Your Child About Sex. That's the name of the book.
Wow.
So they did a great job with their kids in that around 8 years old, they would bring me, for example, to a restaurant, and they brought a little book with them, and they told us the whole story about sex, and they were both there. They were both really open and easygoing about it, and I found it to be really interesting, like I said on the show. Um, and that started a conversation. It wasn't just a one-time thing, but it was a pretty often like check-in with me. How are you doing? Do you have any questions? Is there something going on that you want to talk about? That kind of stuff. Um, and my dad would do that with me on a monthly basis a lot of the time. Most of the time it was on a Sunday afternoon, and he would kind of rotate through the kids so that each of them would get their own time, but not all on the same day, just like a few on each Sunday.
Yeah,
And
rotating them, huh?
yeah, and basically, I followed that same lead with my daughter, and we took it a little bit differently. She was starting to have questions, and she had some questionable things happening with her friends that made us think, maybe we should start a little earlier than 8. So we did it when she was 7, and we had this great discussion. It was this place that we'll always remember.
Hmm.
We were on holiday in Ireland, and it was this old church that had been converted into a pizzeria. And I'll always remember the discussion. My wife and I were much more nervous about it than our daughter, but it went really well. It was totally like normal. It wasn't like, and we used the correct anatomy words, and we started the conversation, and then we've just done that ever since. We've just done the same thing, checked in with her. Hey, did you see, you have any questions about that movie you saw, or is there anything that you want to talk about? And she does sometimes have questions, and it's great to be able to just talk. So that's basically the overview of what we've tried to do with our daughter.
I think that's excellent. And also, I love the title that it's an ongoing conversation because especially now the times have changed. I mean, compared to how we grew up, now
Yeah.
there's different genders, now there's different sexualities, there's all
Yes.
kinds of different colors of a spectrum going on. So there's going to be questions that we didn't have for our parents. So it's like, wait, hang on a minute. I didn't have these questions because back then this stuff didn't, it existed, but we weren't aware of their existence. And so now
Exactly.
there's this brand new table of choices and options. And so is this what you mean by an ongoing conversation?
Exactly what I mean. And you're right. It's a totally different world. And I think I've been able to sort of keep up with it, but now that she's entering into the, tween and
Oh,
teen
she probably
years,
knows more than you do now. What?
but I do feel like it's still an option to be able to ask questions. And like you said, to talk about all the different kinds of relationships out there, all the different people, every different kind of situation that people run into in the world, that people experience in her day. She'll know so many more things than we did when we were growing up, and she'll also be empathetic and aware of everybody in their situation. And we really try and teach her to just love and accept anybody for whatever situation they're in, but just to know what those things are, because friends are going to get kind of confusing. They
Oh, yeah.
don't know a lot of the stuff. They might present things in strange ways. And so the more we can do to kind of at least sort of give a nice framework for those things, the better, I think.
How do we talk to our children about sex or gender or sexualities without putting in forth any of our internal biases?
Hmm. Yeah. Again,
Because it
one
can
of
come
the
across, I mean, even in our tone and the sound of our tone can change, and kids will pick up on that cue.
yes, yes. I think it's a really great question. Again, it puts so much pressure on the parents, because I think we will make mistakes. But I think that it goes along with that same principle, Dr. Leno, is it's better to try and do your best, the best you can, than to just avoid it. And so I think that what you've done with your podcast, for example, is great. And I think that if I take my daughter to a movie, it's a great way to talk about things that she may not know about, or things like that. And maybe I'm a little like my dad in that way. I'll bring her to things that are a little bit more mature than maybe she's ready for. But I do think that I think it's important to do that, to really uh, try. Is basically the same. It's the same thing. It's effort, and I think we've got a lot to learn still, but we have that growth mindset.
Speaking of growth mindset and trying, I can imagine because I know that my cousin's daughter did this to me a few times where they'll call you out on your stuff. And I was like,
Oh,
"Wait a minute. Wait, how did you know that? Wait, did I say that? Is that my tone of voice?" I mean, and it shuts me up. I'm like, whoa, let me stay quiet. Hang on a minute. What they're onto something. They're pointing out one of my insecurities. And
yeah.
it's like they're quick to point these things out that other people won't point out. Have you had this situation where your daughter's pointed things out and it kind of just gives you a humbling moment?
Definitely. There's so much wisdom in kids that you don't give them credit for, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, they just
Yeah.
totally called that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
You've been
And
called
it's
out on?
yes, oh yes, quite often. And I think that that's healthy, and that actually is another one of the ways, Dr. Leno,
It is it the
is just
humility one?
yes, intellectual
Intellectual
humility.
humility. Way 15. I might be wrong, but
Yes, yes. And if we, sometimes dads and parents are so, it's almost passed down from generation to generation that I'm the one who knows everything and you can learn from me. And if I don't know, I'm going to still make it up so it sounds like I know. But I think we need to take a new look at that. And I think that there's a lot of good research out there that says that
There is.
actually admitting that you might be wrong could actually be helpful, not only in parenting, but in life. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a polarized society these days is because people are just sticking to their side so much. But what I love about scientists, especially the best social scientists, is they say, actually, there's a joy in being wrong. Like
Yeah.
we can cultivate this ability to say, oh my gosh, I thought this, but actually I'm completely wrong or I'm partially wrong.
Yeah.
And this is great. I'm learning something new and we're always developing. And thinking that way is so much more healthy, especially when you model that to your kids.
Yeah. And when you model that to your kids, hey, this is great. I was wrong. I learned something new. That
Yes.
helps them be okay with making mistakes.
Yes. Yes. That gives them that growth mindset. Exactly. It's okay to try and fail, and that's how we learn. So yes, yes.
I love this. I love this. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. It looks like we're running out of time and there's just so many other good chapters. So for those that want to know other incredible topics are the power of good, the power of bad, creating a strong family culture, and the power of stories. Well, let's end with the power of stories since that's your way 25. And I would have loved to cover the rest. Perhaps I can invite you back on the show in the near future and we can cover some of these chapters more in
Hey,
depth. But
this
for
has been
now,
amazing.
what in way 25, the power of stories, what do you mean by the power of stories? What kind of stories?
Right. So the way that I see it, I'm fascinated by the idea of stories. So first of all, what I mean by that in the big run is our family vision statement, which is a big thing. It's right by our door here, right behind me in our entranceway. It says, create good stories. And what that means to me is every day is a story. Every conversation could be a story. Every year is a story, every decade is a story, and the whole family story has the possibility of being a good story. That doesn't mean it doesn't have its ups and downs and its oscillations, but our narrative as a family is going to be a good story no matter what is thrown in our way. And actually, the things that are most difficult are the things that are going to make us grow the most. And
Absolutely.
I know that you've been through a lot of that, and you probably could say this a lot better than I can, Dr. Lino. But that's what I mean by the create good stories. And so stories are a big part of our family. My daughter asked me to tell her stories for maybe 5, 6 years on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. And so we made up an ongoing story where she was the protagonist and she had this friend that they would always get into some trouble and learn something. And so there was always some stories that we were telling, just bedtime stories or whatever. And then she also knows that our family is a story. Her life is a story. And she is making mistakes in the story, learning from them, and her narrative continues to go. And if I asked her right now, what's our family vision statement, she would know because it's on the door, and I quiz her on it every once in a while, and I tie it into our life because it's kind of our North Star. It's like, okay, the story's not going super well right now, but we're gonna eventually create a good story through this. And that gives hope and that gives a vision. So that's the idea of the create good stories or stories in our lives. And just one more thing, telling stories of our ancestors is a really powerful way to give our kids resilience in the face of difficulty. So I encourage dads to pull out the old books or ask grandpa or whatever to tell a story about how somebody went through something difficult. Uncle Joe or grandpa whatever or grandma so and so when they did this thing, it was really hard for them, but they made it through. and you can do it as well. And it
Yeah,
gives this resilience to kids.
it really does. And it keeps the creative process going as well.
Yeah,
How beautiful. And as you're saying this, I'm just remembering that it's stories that really keep family together. I mean, I know countless stories of my family members, and these stories will be passed on and passed on and passed on. And it's these lessons that we learn, things that we chuckle about, laugh about, learn about. I mean, even as simple as a recipe that's been passed on from generation to generation. I mean, that's a story in itself. And it allows you to be like, hey, I wonder if I can make this recipe. I mean, it just kind of continues
right,
the
right.
ancestral lineage, and that's really what makes family values important, the creativity and the love and the ingredients that everyone tosses together to keep it going.
Well said. Yes, yes. It's such a fascinating idea, actually. The recipes that are passed on in
Yeah.
families is it tells its own story. It's amazing. Yeah,
It
yeah, totally.
is. Only your
Yes.
grandmother can make it like this. Let
Yeah.
me see if I can. It's got grandma's
Yeah.
touch though. Oh my goodness, Tal, this has been really amazing connecting with you. Thank you so much for all the wonderful, beautiful work that you put forth, your energy. Uh, Tal Eyre is a author of a book called Dad Mode: 25 Ways to Connect with Your Children. It's been really a blessing and an honor to connect with you. I'd like to end this episode with a poem that I wrote and which I was motivated by your story and probably my near future. So here we go. It's called Sweet Child. Sweet child, dear little one. Lay your head on my shoulder as I rub your back. Feel the warmth that unites the music we make together. Sweet lullaby, you are my little angel. I keep you guarded, yet I keep you free. I keep my eyes on you. Your eyes stray away from me, but they always turn back to see if I am there. I am here, I am there. Through lessons and tears and laughter and joy, I watch you grow. I watch your show, and I love how you bloom, sweet child. And there it is. Thank you for the inspiration. I appreciate it.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Lino.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I gotta say, poetry is a big part of the reason I'm a sane person. I absolutely love poetry for the reason that you just displayed. It gives a whole new world to people, and so thanks a lot for sharing that. That's great. Well
Thank
done.
you for saying that. It's well received, and I feel the same way about it. It's definitely a blessing to be able to put my feelings into words, into sentences. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. I look forward to stay connected and wish your book and your dad life and your daughter and your wife and your incredible Swiss Alps all around you. Love, light, and the glory of love. Keep going, Tell.
Right. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.